We are streaming live on YouTube.
Fantastic. So, Doc, the lead questions I sent you, they are just what they are, indicative. Okay. So we are not. It's not like we're going to follow, the questions in that sequence, or actually ask all of the questions. It might even be that we'll glean one or two very short questions as follow up from any remarks that you may have made. But the purpose essentially is for you to have an helicopter view of the issues around which we'll be talking.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got that.
Good, thanks. That probably keeps Jumoke a bit reassured as well, I hope.
Oh, with you on the chair, I'm never worried.
Yeah, there was this concern that the questions are too much, Doc.
No, when I do interviews, it's a light span, anything comes, you're able to take it on.
Good.
It's also a challenge for one, as you go on, you take interviews and public discussions, you learn.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, none of those issues, is alien to you. Those are things. No. Those are things that you are conversant with and talk to, basically on daily basis.
Mr. President is in, and it's 9:01.
This is Olu Victor. President is still coming.
Olu Victor, how are you?
My Excellency, sir. How are you, sir?
Very well, very well.
How is Berlin?
No, I'm not in Berlin. I'm in Brussels.
Oh, sorry, Brussels. Yes.
Very well.
How are you, sir?
Very well, my brother. Well done.
We thank God.
Cheers.
Wait, I see unto the Lord.
Okay, Pastor will soon join.
All right then. Cheers.
So, So Collins.
Yes, please.
While we're waiting, can you tell me a bit more about your group?
Yes, okay. Rebuild Nigeria initiative came to be some 3-4 years ago when, the agitation for disintegration of Nigeria was really at its height. I mean, it went beyond just IPOB to other groups, in the Yoruba hinterland and as well as up north, where we thought that we need to call a halt to that disintegration discourse for a start, and then begin to look at peace in its entirety, and begin to ask about where those fault lines are, how do you address them, and then circle back to that issue of the unity, the oneness of Nigeria. Now, it has to come. It must not be. It is desirable, but the conditions have got to be made right. So that was how Rebuild Nigeria initiative came to be. And then, we launched out first in Abuja, I believe, after about 1.5 years of testing the waters and all of that, approximately 2 years ago. And then, we have been leaning more towards non-state activism in the sort of activities that we do. We have had an international peace conversation hosted by the Bishop of Antwerp here in Belgium as follow-up to our official launch, and then actually grouping together Corporate Nigeria to talk about the peace from their perspective. So the latest is this series of peace dialogues targeting as guest speakers thought leaders in Nigeria who give their perspective about peace. So in the case of Anambra, it is youth economic empowerment, as a pathway to sustainable peace. How do you guys see it, and how we are, how you are approaching it in the expectation or hope that others watching would glean one or two things from the Anambra example and then see how it could be duplicated, So there are other aspects to it that are coming in the bi-weekly virtual meeting. So that's in a nutshell what it's all about.
Okay, Mr. President is in now. I think he's ready to get started.
Fantastic.
Yes. We thank God for today, and we thank God for today's program. And I want to thank our guests today for taking the time, the trouble, the effort to be with us here today. And we're going to be looking at youth as the youth economic empowerment as a pathway to sustainable peace, as a pathway to sustainable peace. Youth economic empowerment as a pathway to sustainable peace. Our guest, Dr. Alex Obiogbolu, is a medical doctor and a politician from Onitsha North Local Government Area of Anambra State. He has been in the service of the public good for more than 30 years, and he has served as executive chairman, Anambra State Rural Development Authority from 1992, and in other capacities as the MD, Anambra State Environmental Protection Agency, executive chairman, Local Government Service Commission, member, State Creation Committee, and currently special advisor to the governor on political matters. I think he's more than eminently and ably qualified to see how we can use the benefits of youth empowerment to bring sustainable peace. This is the third in our series of peace dialogues, looking for a way by which we can bring peace and progress to our nation, Nigeria, and looking for a way by which things can truly be transformed. We're hoping that from these dialogues and from the conversations there, we can really begin to impart and impact change. Thank you very much, Dr. Alex, for coming. We look forward to a very robust discussion and to fruitful conclusions. Thank you. Also to thank my VP for making all this happen. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, the able president, Pastor Ito Igodalo, for that citation. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite our special guest, Dr. Alex Obiogbolu, to give us his opening remarks centered around youth empowerment as a pathway to sustainable peace, where we will be listening to the Anambra State example and to see what watchers could glean from the Anambra State example. Dr. Obiogbolu, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you, listeners. First of all, it's my pleasure to be here today, and I'm most grateful that you have given me the platform to speak. This is our country, Nigeria, and in the last 3 decades, we have just continued to launch forward from one security crisis to another. You've been having kidnappings, Boko Haram, herders, farmers, conflicts. And then, of course, it's come down to the Southeast, where I reside and our people are, with unknown gunmen. All these things have one common thread: the use of violence. And you have non-state actors carrying firearms, killing, maiming people. And it's basically youth. One common denominator amongst them is that these are all people who are young men between the ages of 15 to 45, mostly, who are involved in these things. And youths are an important segment of any population. They are the vibrant ones, energetic. And in Nigeria, I think, going by the statistics, they form over 65% of the population. So when you look at it, on the flip side, they are active, vibrant. They become either the victims or perpetrators of this violence. And there's so much restiveness amongst them. So what we've basically done in Anambra State since the advent of Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo's administration is to, first and foremost, law and order was critical. And for us, good governance will bring about peace. If you have good governance, you'll have sustainable peace in the long run. Because they say an idle mind is a devil's workshop. When people lack access to amenities, they lack access to opportunities, then what happens? They get frustrated and they're bound to be involved in crime. So what we've done basically is to focus on how to empower the youth. And when you look at it, we worked on 3 basic areas. One, how can we empower them so that they can be gainfully engaged, gainfully employed? And then 2, investing in their health. Because, a healthy mind, a healthy body makes a strong nation. And we also invested in education. So when the government came in at first, it looked at it. We did an assessment of what the education system was in terms of manpower, in terms of the facilities. And in terms of manpower, you had a shortage of about over 7,000 teachers in the state, in over 300 schools we have in the state. And that was a major crisis. And considering that the resources were lean in government, the governor said, well, what we had to do was to reduce our overhead, reduce in terms of political appointees, and channel most of this money immediately to recruit teachers. Because when we did the research, we saw that one political appointee may be special assistant, because the predecessor had employed over 1,000 political appointees. One political special assistant's appointment will employ 5 teachers, I beg your pardon. So what we basically did was to recruit 5,000 teachers into the system, because maths teachers were lacking, English, these are basic subjects, not to talk of the specialized subjects like physics, chemistry, science, and art courses. So 5,000 teachers were employed and put into the schools. Then we looked at the health. We saw that a lot of, there was no general hospital, no secondary healthcare, basically. It was primary healthcare centers that didn't have even doctors, didn't have qualified nurses. So again, we had to increase the manpower by getting these health workers on stream, on board. Onboarded a lot of them, a lot of doctors. Now, in terms of the entrepreneurship program to empower them, we developed certain models. One was the 1 youth 2 skill. We felt that most of the youths who are either underemployed because he probably read a course in the university and is not doing that course, is not working or employed in that field of study, or he was not able to secure employment because the course like zoology, botany, these courses, you don't have jobs for them in Nigeria. So what we decided to do was to reskill, and we created 1 youth 2 skill. Also for those who probably had basic education like junior secondary school or WAEC, we had over 20 skills that were doing that very span from catering, information technology, clothing, fashion design, printing, paint design, beauty care, automobile repairs, solar power. I can't remember all of them, but so many of them: solar power, CCTV, I think furniture, and leather works. amongst the 20 skills we try to dive. So we've done the pilot phase. That was done last year, in our first year. We had 5,000 of them. We're doing another 10,000 this year. And in the first pilot scheme where we had 5,000, finally about 4,000 something are in the final stage. They've been taught how to prepare their plan, business plan, how to do accounts and keep records of their accounting system. And in the next 3-4 months, the government has already provided funds that will be given to them, startup funds, to start up the businesses. Then we had planned that by June this year, which is this month, we'll have started the second stage of 10,000 persons, but we're delaying it to get these people on board first in terms of finance. Then another thing we did was what you call the Soludo Innovation District. The intention is in the next 5 years to turn Anambra State into what you have in India, where we are able to use technology to increase the per capita of our people and also improve the lifestyle and life of the youth in terms of their take-home pay and what they get. That we have done. We said that we'll do the first thing, which is just basic skill acquisition, basic skill like digital skills in computer and then using Android devices. And we put out a lot for 10,000. We oversubscribed. We got about 20,000 people. So by the time we concluded the first phase, there was 17,000 that was on board in the final stage, and they're all being certified. We did that in conjunction with Microsoft company here in Nigeria. And the ESCO, the Executive Council, has just approved the design of the building, the infrastructure that will house this district. We intend to provide a full, more extensive tenured training of these youths. Some courses like coding, like AI, artificial intelligence. These courses will run for between 6 months to 2 years. The syllabus has been developed now, and I think they are at the stage of trying to develop the board, the faculty board. So we hope that by the end of this year, that will be on stream. So these are the part of the youth programs. We also have cooperative scheme we're planning, and the one boy, you know, the Igbo race is known for training young people in businesses, apprenticeship program, where they later become empowered to become their own people. And we call it One Boy program, which again, we're trying to do a program where we can empower them, provide them the digital skills, provide them the training that they can be able to run the businesses on their own when they leave, and then give them grant funds after. So those are the 4 programs we have lined up for youth that we have started implementing, apart from investing in their health and in education.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much, Dr. Biobulu, for that poignant overview of what Anambra State is doing to empower the youth in the state. I think the most important takeaway from your expose is that government was seen to cost so much to run. And so rather than looking left, right, and center as to where to get fundings, perhaps seeking international development funds from God knows where, Anambra State decided to look inwards and to say, we are going to run a lean government that will recruit or that will do less political appointments, and by so doing, actually freeing up funds to be able to do the things that are within the realms of the priority of Anambra State. And so the one of the priority areas is then youth empowerment. That was how then, financing the 4 pillars came about. It is still early days. Some of them have taken off. Others are yet to take off. They are, on the pipeline. But are you able to tell us if, as of this moment, there have been, indications of Anambra State, coming close to achieving the goal that it set out for itself when you decided that you are going to empower youth? More specifically, are you able to talk, towards how the initiatives you have taken so far, the few that you have been able to reach, if there are any indications that the youth restiveness has the potentials of being curtailed as a consequence of, these tailor-made actions that you have taken? Could you give us some insights?
Well, the truth is that in the immediate, you won't see a clear difference because this rot took so many years to come in. But one thing is certain, that when you look at, let's give an example. I mean, one of the biggest problems we have in terms of youth restiveness in Anambra is the Agbero, what you call the Agbero syndrome, where a lot of young, unengaged young men go to the streets, terrorizing people, extorting money, and basically forming a parallel state unto themselves. Now that has reduced remarkably because many of them have gone into this program, especially the One Youth to Skill. Apart from the fact that government has consistently using its state resources to make sure that they went off the streets. In the past, many of them will come back. But this time around, you've seen that there are less number of them on the streets than before. So it's not something that we'll say it's a work in progress. It's not something that will just disappear overnight. That's one. Then secondly, when you mentioned the programs, I would say it's just the One Boy program that is yet to take off. The other 3 programs, the One Youth to Skill, the Solution Innovation District, the cooperative space, have all started and they're already work in progress as we talk. And of course, one of the things you see in the restiveness of the youth is also in terms of street begging, street hawking, where parents basically have exploited children. And that, of course, is history in Anambra State now, because as of today, you'll see that when you go around the major roads and streets of Anambra cities, you discover that all these things are off. Children that are hawking or children that are begging. That has also been one task that the Ministry of Women Affairs has been involved in. Of course, if you also watch the social media, you'll see there are a lot of things relating to sex slavery in Anambra. We've been impounding and forcefully acting on them. So all these things that as a result of youth restiveness, violent, non-violent crimes, we've been working on. And the only way to succeed is to provide alternatives, meaningful, profitable alternatives for the young people.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to announce that intermittently, we will be entertaining questions from the audience. We want to make this as interactive as possible. In the past, we had adopted the system of, shoving all the questions back to the end. But this time around, we are going to be receiving questions, after a few conversations with Dr. Obiobolu. So you can either indicate if you have a question through the virtual means, or you can actually, type out the question on the chat box, and you can be rest assured that we will take those on. Now, moving a bit away from, the general statements, Dr. Piobolo, I'm going to zero in a bit personal to statements or positions that you have been known for. For instance, you are on record to say that two wrongs never make a right. And you say this mainly in relation to how best, the best strategy to win the peace and sustain the peace, particularly in the southeast of Nigeria. Now, does this indicate that you have a position of actually going soft on, miscreants, on those that are seen to be causing mayhem, all because you want to attain peace? Could you give us, some insights on what you mean by two wrongs, not making a right?
Yes, one of the objects of governance and governments is law and order. And you have the state actors whose principal duty are to maintain this law and order. And then in Nigeria, especially in the Southeast, you have the non-state actors whose job is to create disorder. They gain from disorder. And I belong to the school of thought that says you do not win the peace by winning the war. If you're going to have a sustainable peace, it must be something that is equitable and acceptable to all parties. Therefore, you can win the peace by creating the jobs and the opportunities these young kids lack. That does not in any way stop the state actors from enforcing the law and order. But that is not the ultimate. That is what we say in medicine, treating the symptom. Because the real cause of civil strife, unrest, and these violent crimes is as a result of mostly inequality in the society and lack of good governance. So I believe that more emphasis on good governance, equitable distribution of resources, open opportunities, access to healthcare, to education, and affordability. These are the principles by which you can win and ensure a sustainable peace within your society. That is not to say that, there's no society where there is 100% peace. Crisis is part of mankind and arises every day. There'll always be somebody who probably out of mental ill health or just being out of sync with the society gets offended and wants to take action. So, but if in Nigeria, we're going to have a sustainable peace where we can say that the crime rate will drop, then we have to look at good governance and other non-violent factors that can help the system.
Thank you. Well, we already have the first salvo fired by someone unidentified. Well, I hesitate, as a matter of fact, to actually engage someone that hasn't identified himself or himself, but I'm going to make an exception this time around to actually read out or put before us the issue that the person has raised. But going forward, ladies and gentlemen, if you want your comment or your questions taken on board, you need to clearly identify yourself, okay? The person that actually made the comment, or has responded as a matter of fact, and has identified himself as Jimmy Chuka Okafor. Yes. And his point of objection is that young people should not be addressed as restive. We shouldn't use the term restive to actually describe them. As a matter of fact, in his opinion, these are despondent young people who are looking for ways to carve out a living for themselves. If anything, in his view, the politicians should look in the mirror to be able to see what stares them in the face. I don't know if you have a view on that. I mean, in addition to the fact that you started off the conversation by actually highlighting what Anambra State has done in terms of looking inwards and taking the deliberate decision to run a lean government as opposed to one that is very expensive. Are there other ways, that the current leadership of Anambra has looked itself in the mirror and, decided to change what it is seeing? And indeed, what is the issue, according to you, about describing these youths as restive? Thank you.
Well, I think the word restive is a term I'm more comfortable with than touts, vagabonds, criminals, which is often the more popular words used on them. And the truth, I agree with the last commentator that this, as a result of what society, they react to the stimuli from the society, and everybody doesn't think alike, everybody doesn't behave the same way. Different stimuli cause different reactions in different persons. But what Anambra State has done, basically, Mr. Governor believes that good governance is the panacea to peace and coexistence. And, peace and coexistence driving from good governance means that there are certain pillars that you look at that form the foundation for that good governance. I mean, we have looked at it and said transparency, the ability for government to be transparent in its dealings, will help. How are we transparent? For example, we were recruiting 5,000 teachers. And the governor knows that the trend in Nigeria is you don't get a job without knowing somebody. So he warned everybody in the executive council, which is the top rank of his governance structure, and said, any appointee of this government who influences this recruitment process will not more be a part of this government. So there were 3 stages of interviews, 2 computer-based, transparent, open, that allowed it. Something interesting happened. When the Commissioner for Education went ahead to publish the first set of people who were recruited, who were successfully recruited, Mr. Governor got a text from a citizen. That is another thing, accessibility. He got a text on his phone saying that she was not successful, yet somebody she knows, a personal friend she knows that she scored higher marks than, was recruited. And when the governor interrogated that, he discovered it to be truth. He quickly directed that it should be cancelled, and that before the next list will be published, that the scores should be made public. So they published the scores of all the 7,000 something who were shortlisted in that third round. And that was how transparent it was. And then he came and said, anybody who has crossed this cutoff of 55 points and you are not recruited, report. And of course, on his Facebook, which people like me try to monitor and know what's happening, we saw people and then we invited them. And the governor approved the further 500 persons to be recruited in addition to 5,000 because they crossed and met the minimum cutoff. So transparency is one foundation. Accountability. This is the first time I've been in politics in Anambra State and public governance. This is the first time a state government is publishing the cost of its roads and the distance of that road. Like what I said, the cost of the road as well as the distance of the road. That has not been done before. They may publish distance, they won't publish cost. They may publish cost, they won't publish distance. And then we faced our major test. The Bishop of Oka, Bishop Okafo, Ezokafo, went and measured the Amansi to Oba Family Road, which we didn't know until he came to the governor and told the governor that he measured this road. And it was actually the distance that we had quoted. So accountability helps drive good governance. Equitable distribution of resources helps drive good governance so that at the end of the day, there is peace, everybody is happy. Part of the problems that has driven non-state agitations in the Southeast has been that huge perception of our people that we are not being treated as equals in Nigeria. So equitable distribution is another key. And then of course, law and order. We know how chaotic Anambra is, how people drive recklessly on the road, lack of obedience to traffic regulations, break traffic lights at will. They build and set up illegal structures anywhere, build structures even on channels, waterway channels. That being the principal aim of the Mr. Governor, that was what we faced the first year, removing all illegal structures. Even where it affected our own friends, it had to go. So I believe that when you put law and order, equitable distribution, accountability, transparency, with good governance, you will have peace. That is the panacea for peace, sustainable peace. And that's what we're aiming to do.
Thank you, Dr. Obiobolu. Just one point of correction from my end. I actually misspoke earlier when I was highlighting the name of the person that posed the question. The person actually is a friend of mine, incidentally. She is Jenny Chika Okafor, not as earlier announced. So that question came from Jenny Chika Okafor, joining us from London. Now, I will give the floor for the next question to a prominent Anambra son, a non-state actor, Ambassador Joseph Anyalogo. Over to you, Your Excellency, for your question. Thank you. Is Ambassador Anyalogo no longer there?
He's here. We just asked him, please unmute, sir.
Unmute, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, Collins.
Hello,
sorry, I was out and got cut off before 5 o'clock, and I was actually somewhere, but I've come into the house. So fine. Well, Dr. Biobolo, my townsman, thank you. Are you there?
He is. Please carry on.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, yes. Well, I heard what you said you are doing And but let me just say, first of all, that youth empowerment, economic empowerment, is very critical to peace, because that is the segment of the society that firmly airs its happiness or unhappiness in various ways, even though somebody has complained about restiveness, but that is just semantics. Yeah, they are restive because they have expectations that are not met. Anambra State must do a lot more, and I have heard how they recruited 5,000 teachers, but do they have the data enough to show that that is all that is needed? There has to be a lot more, first of all, in education, and even structuring the quality of education. Let it now be a type of education that can make them be producers, fend for themselves, get work outside, and do so many things. Our education system is still lacking. And by the time we do all that, we'll find that we need perhaps times 3 or 4 more teachers to man our education sector. The same thing with the health sector. Education and health are the 2 critical needs that the youth require. Thirdly, and perhaps more importantly, is entrepreneurship. We must put a lot of resources in small and medium enterprises. It's not just the boy money. We put a lot of money there, and I was hoping that an opportunity will come when I also tell the federal government that if they spend 6 trillion in subsidizing one item of our needs, that is oil, or rather fuel, and don't have anything serious in SME, small and medium enterprises, that's a real big failure on the youth, for the youth. And we must be it's very important. I think that Anambra State should start a robust SME enterprise. The money can be sourced internally, even externally. Our Nigerians in diaspora can key into that, because that's really what you can use to empower economically empower the youth, so that they'll be happy doing whatever they're doing. Then gradually you wean them off from restiveness. They become a serious member of the community. And because we're also looking up to them to carry the future of the society in themselves. And it is unfair. You don't give them good education, you don't give them good society belonging or community belonging, you don't allow them to even draw on their energies and their capacities. So I just wanted to make sure that Obiobolo carries this across as a special advisor to the governor. Whatever they are doing, they should take it more seriously. It's not a perfunctory thing now. It's very critical to getting peace, community peace, national peace, and development. I thank you for giving me the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador Anyalogo. Now, I'm going to pose a question that is linked to the one that Ambassador Anyalogo has asked, so that Dr. Obiobolu can take them all in one swap. There are those who point accusing fingers to the federal government for the disparity in, the infrastructure projects that are actually implemented in different regions of Nigeria. It is, believed that some regions of Nigeria benefit more than others in terms of, federal infrastructure projects. Now, when you consider that often, these disparities actually means that you are delinking economic planning from peace planning. That is their interpretation of that situation, that economic planning that is fair and judicious is on its own peace planning. I don't know what your take is on that. I mean, considering the length of your engagement in public service over or some 3 decades now, what can you tell us about the equitable distribution of infrastructure projects in Nigeria as part of the fault lines of peace or lack of it in Nigeria, in addition to the question posed by Ambassador Ayalogo? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Collins. Let me just take yours on first. In my 32 years of activism in politics, I would say that's where I like to put it. I've always believed that if you want to get a great nation, the building blocks for a great nation is the state. So if we get most of our best hands in the states, then we are bound to have a better Nigeria. From up, down approach Nigeria, it doesn't work. Staying in Abuja, controlling everything has never worked. So my way to answer this question is to let you know that my focus and the focus of this present administration, which I serve, is what do we do with the resources we get? Because there's a limit to what we can do in terms of, I will want this, want that to come. These things are controlled outside our own state control. I'll give you. The National Assembly has the right to appropriate laws on funding, on the Budget Appropriation Act. Now we have 15 senators out of 109 coming from the Southeast. Now that is a small number to influence anything, but they could influence if they networked and had some form of partnership. But what you will discover in the past, and maybe will continue, is that they are not able to even articulate themselves together to be able to pursue one goal, which is why you will see the basic Onitsha Enugu Expressway stay on for over 15 years. Now, we can't control the politics, the fact that population determines electoral victories. In Nigeria today, they've shown in 2 elections that if you have 4 zones, you can win the presidency. So those things are beyond our own control in Anambra State. What we're looking at is what can we do with our own resources? How do we manage our resources to achieve this? And I'll give you one example. You have in Onitsha, there's a major highway, the road that goes from 33, Onitsha, Otuocha, Almasi, Adani Highway. That road is a federal road and nothing has been done. It's not been widened. Population growth in that direction has made it put stress on that road. What the government basically has done is, okay, let's find an alternative road since the federal government is not too keen on doing this road. And we have done what you call the Marine Nsugbe Road, which is close to 9 kilometers road that will now form an alternative outflow for those living on Onitsha or coming into Onitsha. So for us is what do we do with our own resources? And that comes to what Ambassador said. When I spoke earlier, I spoke about how we're doing in terms of entrepreneurship and getting the youths to be gainfully engaged and employed. Because like I said, an idle mind is a devil's workshop. We have the 1 U2 skill. That we have taken the first lot of 5,000, which I said, by the time we're finishing, we had 4,000 and something, some fraction that completed the program. And they're about being given grants, take-off grants. What they've done in the last 2 weeks, business training on how to do a business plan and manage their funds, because that is also critical. Acquisition of skill is one, but being able to manage your funds and run your business is another skill on its own. Then I looked at in education, I also said that apart from the fact that we noticed there was shortage of 7,000 and some fraction gap in terms of teachers, what the government could do based on its resources was to say, let us first recruit 5,000. And if I'm allowed to, unlike before where you say you've recruited 5,000 and then maybe it's 1,000 you recruited, it's all political gimmick. Leveraging on technology. Right now I can share with you on my screen, if I just go into my laptop, I'll share with you the detailed list of the 5,000 people, 5,000 plus now, because when we looked at the cutoff of 55, we discovered that actually it was slightly above 5,000 and 5,000 had been announced. So we needed another approval to get the 500 on board. In the health sector, we're doing health insurance. What, in summary, just not to take too much of your time while I'm speaking more, is what the focus is. Listen, we must be accountable. We must be transparent to what we're doing. And we must make sure that we touch every sector that will be impactful to the lives of our people. And we also must remember that the young ones are the future leaders of tomorrow. Therefore, we must focus on them. Of course, one other issue we have, which is work in progress, as Mr. Governor will say, is the environment, the area of the environment. Onitsha, Oka, Newi, these are big centers which are known for, they will say, we live with refuse. But since the advent of this administration, we have been able to reduce that, and we are still working on it. It's part of the problem of refuse management, solid waste management in Anambra State, is the culture of our people, the mindset. So we're also working on that, and it's not something that is going to change overnight. But we've been able to, after 3 trials, we've gotten the best form of management in terms of breaking it into small lots and getting contractors to manage and move and cut away this refuse. We've removed all these receptacles, which are major collection. What we've done is we started from X number, reduced it to X minus N number over time, so that over time we will not have receptacles on the roads. People will pick to be home collections. So that one is a work in progress because the environment is critical for us, so that, as Mr. Governor will say, we want to see people come in and live well in Anambra State.
Thank you so very much. We have to try now to make a bit of a transition from the initiatives of the Anambra State government, around the area of economic empowerment, particularly of youths, to now trying to get a sense of how all of these are in actual sense or are envisaged to translate to achieving sustainable peace in Anambra State. It is no secret that the IPOB group has been making a tremendous wave in southeast of Nigeria. One would expect that part of the unadvertised goal of some of these initiatives is actually to put IPOB out of business. Now, I would like you to speak to that. To what extent, so far, and going by long-term strategic plans of Anambra State, are you targeting, the menace, for want of a better word, of IPOB operatives in the Southeast?
Well, let me just express my personal opinion. My personal opinion. IPOB has always said from the official quarters that they're non-violent. and I personally hold them so. We know Nigeria, we live in Nigeria. The people who claim to be IPOB are criminals who are wearing the garb of IPOB. They also, I mean, just like Nigerians saying that Nigerians are all criminals because a few Nigerians engage in trafficking of drugs and all manners of things. And therefore, once we go abroad, every Nigerian is susceptible to checks in any manner. So for me, in terms of what you just asked, I rather want to address it as violent youths, criminal youths, because for me, I don't think that IPOB as an organization is a violent organization. Now, in what the government is trying to do, basically, there are two ways Mr. Governor has handled it. One is to engage these criminals, because when he came aboard, he did engage and he had a discussion with Mr. Kanu. Subsequently, he appealed to all of them. Anyone who claims to be IPOB, if you're in the forest, live there. We have alternative channels. We're going to set up a truth reconciliation committee. And after a certain time, it was as if, oh, some of them went, oh, how dare you speak? And then, of course, the government went about to establish its strike force, which in partnership with the state actors, the security agencies, it was able to go into the forest and engage these men and flush them out. Their bases were demobilized. Those who were gotten there who were violent were neutralized. And then they left the local governments. By the week of the handover, you had 9 local governments that were under siege. And today, what we see today are basically hit and run incursions. They come in from neighboring states and they try to get back. But like I've always said, you know, the unique thing about this administration from the others is that you can hit, but you will finally be caught. And you see the rate at which our forces engage them and neutralize them when they come in. Many of them don't succeed in leaving. So it's still there, you know, but not, I wouldn't want to qualify it as barest minimum. The issue is that it's been reduced remarkably. And we'll keep saying it's a work in progress. But ultimately, the long-term vision of peaceful and sustainable peace in Anambra State will be when we get our youths majorly engaged, majority of them engaged.
Right. I will hand the microphone, the virtual microphone, over to Dr. Henry Egente, who obviously has a question. Now, if Dr. Egente could basically be brief in your question, that would be very helpful. Over to you, Dr. Egente. Could you unmute yourself? Well, we appear to have lost Dr. Egente.
Okay, yeah. He's here, he has unmuted.
Oh, okay.
And then we have Professor Grange, her hand is up. She had her hand up.
Oh, okay. She can go after Dr. Egente. Prof can go on immediately with her question. So Dr. Obiowolu could take both at the same time. Dr. Egente, please.
I'm sorry, putting on unawares. I was actually bunching my lunch. Sorry for that. Dr. Obiowolu, thank you. I've listened to you attentively. I'll make it very swift and short. 2 questions actually put on the chat forum. The first one is regarding like you rightly said, the government has employed 5,000 teachers in addition to what we already have. But then, I must say, my personal opinion, I have not seen the effects of those employed. But the key question is, what was the criteria for applying these 5,000 teachers? Was it from a particular local government or just randomly? Or did you do what is called a quota system? Because I know we do have about 17 local governments in a number of states. Did you actually employ from most of these local governments or those qualified, irrespective of their local governments? That's the first question. And the other one is regarding the insurance scheme. I put forward a project when Dr. What's the name again? The former commissioner for health, when he was the commissioner before the current one got under Shifobiano, I put forward insurance projects on how it could reach even those in the remote areas. But like my sister here said, most of the projects we bring back home as diasporans die natural death.
Right. Well, those two questions are clear. We seem to have lost him, but I think we got the drift. If Prof could follow suit with our own questions, Dr. Biobolu could take both in one swap. Please go ahead.
Doctor, that was a very good presentation, Dr. Biaguru. I believe that the secret of your success is because of the good leadership skills that both the governor and yourself and possibly other members of your team have. The biggest problem that I see, and this has been demonstrated in other projects, like the one in Ondo State by Governor Mimiko several years ago. He had a project in community development, which was working very perfectly, but somehow he was not able to pass this on to the next government. In other words, there's a problem of lack of sustainability. And this has to be thought about right now as you develop your program. You also have to see your program in a bit more scientific way. That is, you must have some data, some kind of a survey that had been done, a situation analysis, and you are now tackling the problems found during the situation analysis. And so when you document your outputs and outcomes, they can be shared by other people, other states, because we don't, this type of thing that you're doing, it's so wonderful that it needs to be scaled up and it needs to be shared statewide and interstate. So the problem of sustainability, let me also point out the fact that you're actually working around the Sustainable Development Goals. You have chosen youth empowerment as the center, and you found, rightly, that you would have to add other goals to that for you to have a holistic development of the state. It's a wonderful idea. And one of the suggestions that I want to make in terms of sustainability is that you have to engage non-governmental organizations as well, and let them start to understand the philosophy behind your program and share. And you can empower them too to continue with the work when when your governor's term is over, because it will be over one day, sadly. Thank you very much.
Over to you, Dr. Biobolu.
Prof, good evening, ma. I'm sure you wouldn't remember this, your student.
Right.
But I can't forget you because I remember you pulling my ear one or two occasions.
Oh, really?
Listen very well.
Oh,
And
dear.
I was very active as a student then, student activism. And I remember you pulling my ear and said, listen, watch this, this is going to help you in future. So I'm very honored to be listening to you and speaking to you today, ma'am. Yeah. So, Prof, even when you're Commissioner for Health, I mean, we love the great things you did in health. And I appreciate your understanding of what we've done or what we're trying to do in Anambra State. But in terms of sustainability, that is one key thing. You know, Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo from his other world was into consultancy and developmental economics. So he keeps harping on how do we think this thing through? How do we make this thing sustainable? How does it outlive us? So one of the things we have done, or he has done, is to first of all, onboard young people. I mean, I was, you know, I just left medical school. 3 years later, I was in public. I became active in politics. But you don't have that occasion now for a lot of young people. And one unique thing about the government of Professor Charles Soludo is that it's populated more by younger people, people who are under 40. You can see today that the national chairman of the political party is 40. He's in fact going to be 40 this year. So what he has done is bring them on board so that they spend time, they learn the ropes, and can help sustain this in terms of manpower. Two, in terms of governance structure, to make it more sustainable, we've tried to get the people to drive the process. Nigeria has a 3-tier system: the federal, the state, and the local government. But I can tell you in Anambra State, we have a 4th-tier system, and we're developing a 5th tier now. And what is the 4th-tier system in Anambra? The town unions. The government has been able to mobilize people into town unions, which of course had been there for ages, for decades, starting from the Igbo Union of the 50s, 1950s. So government has leveraged on that in the last 2 administrations of ABGA. They've leveraged on that, working in partnership with the town unions. They have been able to achieve a lot. There's one popular one, is a project, Select Your Own Project. Now, Select Your Own Project means that every town union selects its project every year and is given a sum of 20 million. Now it's been increased to identify its project, get it funded, and then account for the funds. So that is one way of sustainable development and making sure that all these things we do are sustainable. I'll give you one other example. We just concluded. I'm the chairman of the State Steering Committee on that, which is distribution of oil palm seedlings and coconut seedlings. One of the aims of the government is to empower people who are below the lower rank of the economic ladder. And the intention is to do 1 million, plant 1 million seedlings, economic crop seedlings, every year for 4 years. And we developed a model, the Ministry of Agriculture developed a model that said that if we could get a family to plant 10 oil palms using this kishi we have achieved, that at the current market price, by 3rd year when it fruits, at the current market price, that family will be getting 1.2 million every year. And that is roughly 100,000 a month. How many families earn that? So we did it last year. We started and tested the ground with 225,000, thereabout, seedlings. Then the lessons we learned from last year, we came into this year with it. And as I'm speaking with you, even my phone is ringing. Local government chairmen are reporting back some of their progress and issues they have. The issue is to make sure that each household, this year we're looking at each household having 5 of them, maximum of 5, so that we could go through. And in each ward, we have 326 wards. Our intention is to have 400 households in each political ward having this 5 siblings. And we're doing it this way, using technology, using data, that we must have the data of the beneficiaries. His name, his ward, his village, his kindred, his PVC details as a means of proof of identification of voter's card, and the telephone number. So with this, we verified. And this is the way other programs, intervention programs, like the money program, the microcredit, these are the way we want to channel it, using the lessons we learn as we go along. So in terms of sustainability, our eyes are on the ball. We intend to make sure that these things outlive this present administration. And in terms of what the teachers, I was asked about, what Prof asked everyone at ESCO was this: who would you like to teach your son? The best teacher or your cousin? And everyone said the best teacher. And he says, okay, make sure you don't intervene in this recruitment process. We are going to allow the best to come. It doesn't matter where the person comes from. So you saw that in the over 5,000 people we recruited, you see people from Ebonyi, people from the Southwest. All we wanted was the best. Because when we go back to some of the schools some of us attended in this country, it didn't matter who taught you. And thank God, Professor Grange is here. I mean, she's from a different zone from me. And she was my teacher, a great teacher of mine. I can't forget. So we were not looking at a quota system in recruiting teachers. We wanted the best for our students because we want in the next 20 years to be at the top of the performance ladder in Nigeria.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, we are going to zero in on a little bit on peace principle, because let's not forget, where all of these, are coming from. We are having this conversation because we are interested in peace. The fact is that we decided to approach peace from the Anambra State perspective in terms of economic empowerment of young people who incidentally, of course, are in the most productive years of their life. Now, a certain Norwegian professor, Johan Gultan, did very extensive studies around that. And he posited that comprehensive peace, which I imagine is what the current administration of Anambra State is all about, that when it is devoid of constructing equity, constructing harmony, but also reconciling past trauma, and then resolving current conflicts, that it is actually doomed not only to fail, but to fail woefully. Now, where does Anambra see itself as a state, let us say, in the next 10, 20, 50 years, as far as containing conflict within the Southeast, entirely, not just Anambra State, the entire Southeast, but also, can you dare to make some predictions about the state of Nigeria in 50 years' time? Would we have disintegrated where every region on its own, or do you see one united, strong Nigeria? What are the things that are being done today from the Anambra State perspective to support either of the two sides, a disintegrated Nigeria or one united, strong one?
Okay, thank you very much. You asked a multifaceted question. One, you asked what I think, and then you asked what the state government will be doing. Well, I'll answer what I think first. For someone who was trained in the Unity School. And having associated with Nigerians of different tribes and cultures, I can say categorically that Nigeria in the next 50 years will still be a nation and will be greater than what it is today. Secondly, Anambra will be one of the major places in Nigeria that becomes the economic center and also the go-to place for leisure. It will offer both the economic business point with industries, as well as the place to relax and leisure. And in terms of Anambra within relatively to its neighbors and the Southeast region, our dream is, now that the Southeast Commission has been established, that leveraging on this and cooperation with the other Southeast governors, that we'll be able to do things together that will help boost the economic infrastructure and economic progress of the states and its Southeast states. That is one of the goals of this administration. But, you know, our people say that you first beautify yourself at home before you go out. So for the state government, what we want to do now is to make Anambra in the next 5 years a livable and prosperous place. And we just, the ANSEC just approved a leisure center in Anambra to give life to Awka, which is the state capital. We call it Solution Fund City, SFC. It's gonna have a country club with a golf course, as well as a water park, an amusement park, as well as a hotel. That the first stage will be completed by December. The governor wants that when people are returning this December, they should see something different in the state capital. And that can be an attraction for those who live all around the state to come in, stay for the weekend, and enjoy the peace and fun of Awka. So in terms of turning Anambra into a livable and prosperous place, the environment, our emphasis on the environment, solid waste collection, making sure that we change the culture of our people, you know, those things are already work in progress. And for us, in terms of sustainable peace, these are the ingredients, the good governance, the foundation, the panacea for you to have sustainable peace. Because if you look at the population segment, the youths constitute more than 65% of the population. So whatever you're able to put down in terms of democratic dividends, the youths will enjoy from it. And therefore, if you're able to get the youths profitably engaged, they have access to opportunities, both in terms of education, in terms of health care, they will be more progressive, they will be more peaceful. I mean, Nigerians, in my life relationships, Nigerians love peace. They love enjoyment. They love life. They love good life. So some of these things as a result of frustration, the lack of resources, the lack of access to resources, the lack of access to education, lack of access to employment. These are the things that continue to stir the restiveness within the younger population. So for us, good governance is a panacea for that. If we get it right, we'll get peace in Anambra State. And hopefully, you heard what I told you about what is happening now. We've been able to dislodge your non-government, the criminals, away from all the base camps in Anambra State. And yet, they reside in neighboring states, Ebonyi, Imo, from where they come to lodge attacks. So we hope that in collaboration with other states' security services, that we'll be able to remove them from the bases in those states and get everlasting peace.
Right. In the next 10 minutes, there are two broad things we will do. I will ask one or two questions, but then we will begin to then close with questions coming from the audience. That's audience engagement and interaction. Now, let me make an assumption. the president of Nigeria wakes up tomorrow and decides that in Nigeria's developmental trajectory, the country needs a minister devoted entirely to the issue of peace. And so we woke up to a headline that reads, Dr. Obiobolu appointed first Nigerian Minister for Peace. Could you let us into your policy blueprint should you be appointed to such position of Minister of Peace for Nigeria?
Well, as a matter of fact, in terms of experience and what I've seen as the problem in politics, the role I play today as a political advisor, I think, will help produce more peace, better peace than that of Minister of Peace. Because I've always believed that at the national level, you really don't have control. It's just policy statements. And policy without execution is nothing. I mean, that is what we keep saying in Anambra State. It's not just ideas, it's not just about having ideas, having policies in place. How are we able to execute it? Who is going to execute it? In what way is he going to execute it? What is the delivery pattern? What is the expected outcome? How are we going to achieve that outcome? So for me, I wouldn't even think about being Minister of for Peace, because even when I had that opportunity some years ago, I passed it aside. If you look at my political profile, you see I've been more of a local boy. I haven't gone to the National Assembly as my peers want to. I've been more focused on how do we turn Anambra into an economic bloc in this Nigerian factor? How do we change the lives of our people? Because at the national level, there's really little you can do without the right set of people. And in Nigeria, our culture, it's our ways of life, our values have changed considerably. And that has impacted negatively on the quality of leadership. So with that, I wouldn't want to spend my years in political life chasing shadows. I mean, with all due respect to those who want to be ministers or those who have been ministers, but that is my personal policy. So how I'll be Minister for Peace, I haven't thought of it, and I won't give it a thought. I'd rather be something local where I can have some small influence and do the corrections I can and impact the corrections. In fact, when the governor called me on board, he said, everything is political. Health is political. Deliver road is political. So I want you to help me do the political angle of it to ensure that things go on. I'll give you an example to close my answer on this question. We had an issue where we had to deal with street trading. If you know Onitsha very well, or the road, traffic congestion because of street trading. And we had a policy also where we were trying to make the keke riders pay tax because many of them have been evading tax. And the advice was, okay, we want to do those simultaneously. I said, listen, these are people at the lower bottom. Let's take it one by one because we're bound to have repulsion where they're bound to resist us in whichever way we did. And of course, when we started with the first one, the keke, there was demonstration, routing, saying they didn't want what the government was doing. But over time, we were able to resolve that. Now, we resolved it, we've now gone into the street trading. We are removing them from the streets. So these things are methods and strategies by which you can achieve any objective you want. But at national level, I always feel sorry for those there.
Well, essentially, while evading the question, for want of a better word to use, you have indirectly answered them because as a minister at the federal level, even while respecting the quasi autonomy of independent states, we still have a federation where the minister to a large extent calls the shot. They have a way of getting them to comply. But anyway, those are just details. Now, we will open the floor now. We are running to the last segment of the show, which is the interaction. But just before I open the floor up for questions, I have one very brief one. As of this moment, IPOB is classified a terror organization. Would you declassify IPOB as a terror organization?
For me, I said it earlier. I stated it earlier that in my personal opinion, IPOB does not advocate violence, but rather some criminals hiding under the garb of IPOB continue to commit atrocities. So in that quest, if I were given the opportunity, I would declassify them as terrorists and engage their leadership. And that is why, one of the reasons why Mr. Governor, Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo, has continued to call on the federal government to release Nnamdi Kanu, considering the fact that the courts have released him, and told the government that if you have any other case against him, give him to me on bail, quoting the Mr. Governor. Let him come and stay in Oka with me, because his presence will also help to reduce the tension in the state.
Right. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the next 10 minutes, not more, we will take further questions and engage Dr. Obiobolu before wrapping up. So, the floor is open. Indicate if you have any question by raising your hand up digitally. You will be invited, or, of course, you could, indicate so through the chat button. Right. So, anybody with any question? Or can we invite Pastor Itua to...
Pastor is not able to close, so we'll close, or you can close. We have Ukena Omo has a question in the chat, yes. And Jenny also raised her hand. So maybe Ukena can go first.
Yes, Ukena, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll try and keep this short. I'm in a noisy space. First, I have to say thank you to the organizers. Thank you especially to Mr. Ariel Leonard for sharing this to a platform. I'm so honored to be a part of this. Denike Grange, professor, we've idolized you from a distance. It's such an honor to be in the same space as you. Thank you to Dr. Obiobolu, if I'm saying his name right as well. My question is this. Would you be open to exploring this discussion in a sort of on a panel where we could compare notes between the governments of, between the activities of the governments in Imo and Anambra, because we face very similar challenges. And as media professionals in Imo, we very much like to explore and compare notes so that we can bring our government here up to speed. That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have
Jenny, Jenny, please, Jenny Chika Okafor, please ask your question as well, so Dr. Biowolu could take both together.
Thanks very much, and thanks everyone for the privilege to be part of this. My quick question to Dr. Obiobolu is the government of Anambra State open to partnership with people in the diaspora? And if they are, how do we then get involved? Who do we liaise with? Thank you.
I think Dr. Obiobolu's audio may be frozen.
No, it's not frozen. I can't.
Okay, you are here. Okay.
I was just waiting to see whether
sorry about this. I've just been put on so that you can see me. I'm not hiding. I'm still at work. Yeah, sorry. Okay.
That's all right, Jenny.
Okay.
Please, Dr. Obiobolu, over to you.
Okay. I want to thank Ukana and Jenny for their contributions. And I want to say that I'm open. I mean, we are all open in Anambra State to exploring this discussion further on the panel that he may want to share with us. And of course, with Jenny, we are open to partnerships. That's what Mr. Governor is looking for. And once you send me your details, I can forward to you someone who will contact you immediately. It's not you contacting us. We want the partnership. Mr. Governor was in Lagos yesterday to speak to Anambarians and businessmen in Lagos on investment opportunities in Anambra. We'll have an investment summit in September later this year. So we are looking for investments, we're looking for partnerships. Some of the things on our big tickets now we've done with partnership.
Right. Mr. Christian Maduka, please, the floor is yours for your brief question.
Come in.
Yeah, another audio at the background. There's going to be another audio at the background that is confusing. But like you said, you identified me. Thank you very much. My name is Christian Chibuzo Maduka. I'm invited to this platform and I got interested because the resource person, Dr. Biobolu, has been my ally. Like he said, he has been in the Anambra State, within the Anambra State grassroots politics. And he has worked very hard to push the envelope of development. Now, there are a few things we are talking here. Most of the times, the people who are empowering the youth have not ever been sincere. So the youth thinks about empowerment as national cake, where when they talk about, they just gather whatever they take, and then the officials of government who implement empowerment are corrupt and insincere. But that's by the way. But if you want to do it right this time, because Soludo has picked Dr. Biobolu, and we are looking at getting the Southeast incorporated in the national grid back. We need to show the Igbo people of Southeast some tangible sincerity coming from any side. It won't look like, they should be shown what is shown like you are part of the system. And if they feel that way, then a lot of things will be, that is even when the people who are, whether they're under MASOB, IPOB, or any other platform, will show face for negotiation. And that's only when you can even get some sincere agreement or of talking people into to have a forum where we are moving about. That's when you get empowerment. Any empowerment you're getting now, given to people who don't even trust people who are given the empowerment, might fail on the rock. And the people will not appreciate it. They will look like you are just coming to pacify them for a time to get what you want. We need to look at concrete assimilation, concrete projects. The people that you want to empower must make to feel that they're part of this system. One thing, I'll give you an example that happened, and I make sure. I have been part of the people who preach and said, we are part of this nation, Nigeria, until further notice. Now, we did that to a extent where we lost what you can tell the people again. Someone like me cannot come out in public in Southeast and start pushing about peace, because they will tell you everything you people have told us had failed in the past. And that's what I want to contribute. When we have a move, some tangible things need to be done. The people need to be shown that they are part of this system. Because to tell you, like Dr. Biobolu said, all of us are peace loving. What an Igbo man needs in Saudi, let me tell you, He just needs a little piece to do what he wants to do. He doesn't even depend on government for anything. In Igbo land, we provide our water, our schools, our roads. So even the people in Oka, the governor that is in Oka that is pushing this, no matter how many people have called him to account. Igbo man do not. The little thing you do, you get the heart of an Igbo man, you will get all your support. So what they really know is sincerity. It's not everything we play politics. We have played politics for how many years of Nigeria's existence? And it has not is playing Igbos out of extinction and Southeast. Let's not be tribalistic. We are playing the Southeast out of extinction in national politics of Nigeria. And that's what has happened. So
right.
Now is, but that's it. Corinne Smoker, thank you for the opportunity giving me. But that's me. I've been in media and I've controlled the mind of people for 37 years. And I've practiced in the Southeast. Recently, I work with the development organizations as consultant, but I am an Igbo man living. I'm talking to you presently from Newi, and I know how it works.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Maduka. Now, I will cede the floor briefly to Africa Leadership Group for a question. I don't know, could that be
It's me. No, it's me, Sir Collins.
Oh, okay, please.
Yeah. Thank you. I think I wanted to just lend my voice to Mr. I believe it was Mr. Omo and Professor Grange that had raised the question. And while we're trying the peace and reconciliation in Nigeria, even though this initiative is regional, and Mr. Omo had talked about how could there be a panel discussion maybe with Imo State. I want to also challenge those of us here to extend it beyond our region. Regardless of what the agitation is, even if we separate into 5 or 6 different countries, we are not going to move our geographical boundaries. We are still going to be neighbors. So if Oduduwa nation gets a different nation from Nigeria, their geographical location is not going to change. So the interest should be on peace. And for us, what are some of those things that we must do to be able to cohabit with each other, regardless of what our nation becomes? So that's what I wanted to just add to that conversation, that we should look into having panel discussions with those in the South, those in the Northeast, those in the Southwest as well, and see how we can bring this conversation to the table. And it could just be something as simple as sharing the template of some of the success stories of what you're doing, Dr. Obiogulu, in Southeast. They definitely can use that model in the Southwest. They can use it in the Northwest and across the nation. So we should find a way to share information. I think that could be a step to bringing us together when we start to collaborate on common initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're wrapping up now. So I will hand the microphone over to Obiobolo. Incidentally, his video is now on, so we could see his face. Please, Dr. Obiobolo, as we conclude your remarks in answering those questions. Thank you. Or remarks.
Yes, I put it on for the last 10 minutes. I hope the network won't go, when you have heavy data. I want to thank those 2 persons that have just spoken, but particular reference to what Christian said. I agree with him that the non-sincerity of those who lead these empowerment programs, and basically those who are in government, corruption of public officials in government, tend to create this alienation of our citizens from government and also create mistrust. But whilst he was referring to the national, I have always stated that charity begins at home. We must work and earn the respect and trust of our citizens as local officials. It's only when you do that that the national officials can even make any attempt to win their trust. I'll give you an example. I keep saying that every year we share our allocation, our federal allocations. We know some states that get twice what the 5 Southeast states get. What do they do with their allocation? Their citizens are still restive. And once there's restiveness in some states, neighboring states, it's bound to flow. The fact that the northern sector, the northern border of Nigeria, had problems with Boko Haram, the insecurity there, created an inflow of firearms, light firearms. And that has trickled down into various zones of Nigeria, south, southwest, and southeast. So one problem that affects one zone will affect everybody. So for me, in terms of peace, trusting the leadership, it's something that we have to do at the local levels, at our states, to make sure that whatever resources we get to these states are judiciously employed in giving a better livelihood and standard of life to our people. And my closing remark is this, 32 years I've stayed in politics. What I discovered is that people don't want to be actively engaged in politics. They look at it as dirty, like my father told me when I was joining, and they don't want to leave their comfort zones. Now, when you leave these things, who is going to do them? Who is going to correct it? And that is what has brought about the decadence in our political structure today, because we've left those who are incompetent to take the stage. And I believe that the more people are engaged, the more the whole government's accountable in a peaceful manner, the more we'll continue to improve in both the political sector of the country and the economic, because politics controls everything. If you get your politics right, then your economy will be right, your security will be right. So I want to thank you for that opportunity and to be here, to share my ideas. It's a great platform, and I'm grateful to God I've had opportunity to be in the same space with my teacher, Prof, and a whole lot of you. It's my pleasure, Collins.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Dr. Obiobolu, for what I consider a very, very brilliant expose. As we start off our weekend on such a glorious note, I want to actually remark that we're doing so realizing that we had some expectations going into this conversation, and I cannot think of any question that has been put your way that has not been answered. Now, of course, people would grade answers, from their own worldviews in terms of whether they heard what they wanted to hear, or whether, you spoke from your perspective that, is different from theirs. All the same, we had answers, and as far as I'm concerned, very, very satisfactory answers. Through you, we want to thank Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo for actually, approving of you to be with us to have this conversation. I want to align myself with your closing remark, which is that everything is politics. I also want to add that we all cannot be active party political animals. Some of us who choose to be non-state actors in our own different ways. I think what is unacceptable is indifference. You got to be doing something because everything is politics, whether you decide to do it from the platform of a particular political party, or you decide to do it across board as a non-state actor, that is all well and good. I believe that is a nice place to leave the conversation for this particular series. But I also want to use the opportunity to invite each and every one of you to the next, session, which will take place, in the next 2 weeks. Okay, so the Friday after next. Information about that will be, made available, so you know who the special guest will be. Unfortunately, I'm unable to announce who that person is, but in the coming days, perhaps just after the weekend, you'll be able to know who the next guest will be, so you can join us again. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for your time and your input, and let us keep talking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are calling from.
Thank
As
you,
of
and
what?
God bless. Bye-bye.
God bless you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.